We are talking today with Dr. Eduardo Martí, the author of America's Broken Promise, Bridging the Community College Achievement Gap. Welcome to Redera, and we are excited to hear more about the book and about you as well.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
What is the book focused on? And, obviously the title is Bridging the Community College Achievement Gap. What is the community college system, how it was kind of initiated and how it got expanded in the last 30, 40 years?
Well, community colleges really started in 1901 as junior colleges, as preparatories for the University of Chicago. Harper College was the first community college in 1901. But as the system has evolved, community colleges right now are the answer to almost the majority, actually almost half of the students attending undergraduate education in the United States today are attending a community college. And this became a part of the first part of the book talks about the history of community colleges and how they evolved to this point. But the most important part of the community college system is the fact that it promised access to all students who graduated from high school. So this unfettered access makes community colleges different from the four-year college or the baccalaureate granting institutions who are selective in their admissions process. So community colleges are not selective. They accept everyone to come to their doors. The problem with that is that there is a myriad of deficiencies that students come with. Some of them have educational deficiencies, others have social deficiencies, many have financial deficiencies, some have emotional deficiencies. And community colleges, in fact, only concentrate in preparing or remediating the educational deficiencies. That is the promise that I refer to in the book. We promise every person who comes to us that they have access to higher education. However, the fact of the matter is that the selectivity in community colleges takes place as the student progresses through the curriculum. So by the time the students graduate, only about 18% of those who enter, in fact, graduate. So that is the broken promise. We tell everyone, yes, come to us. You have access to the community college. But the fact of the matter is that only 18% of the ones who enter, in fact, graduate. We need to change the way in which community college address the needs of the students. And in my book, what I propose is that the community colleges adopt a generalized in loco parentis position. That is, that if the community college accepts a student, the community college then should be able to provide remediation not just on the educational side, not just on the financial side, but also on the emotional and social side. So we need to take a holistic approach to the education of every student. This, in fact, is the way in which we can bridge the achievement gap. And in my experience, as when I was president of Queensborough Community College, we, in fact, put into place this type of approach. And the approach has been successful. The university that Queensborough Community College belongs to, that is the City University of New York, has a program called Accelerated Studies for Associate Programs, the ASAP program. This ASAP program has a 52% graduation rate as compared to the general community college population that has about an 18% graduation rate. The difference is that the ASAP program provides this holistic approach that I refer to in the book. So it is a complicated issue, and I think the majority of the public is not aware of the complexity of community college education. Most individuals think of community colleges and they only think about the last word, college, and they equate community colleges with the baccalaureate granting institutions, and they're totally different institutions. They are. Yes, we have the ability to provide college-level courses. We do that. But in addition to providing college-level courses, we have to provide a myriad of other services. Is that?
No, very helpful. Would you throw some numbers in addition to what you explained? How many people enter education system every year? How many people are in various levels of colleges in the country, and how many of them are in the community college? And then we can go ahead. Then we can move into the complexities of community college education.
Community colleges serve about 12 million students in the United States. And baccalaureate institutions serve about 14, 15 million students. So it is about 50% of the students who enter undergraduate education are entering through the community colleges. And frankly, what happens is that when you go to a community college, you can actually go into a community college with the aspiration of transferring at the completion of your associate's degree program to the baccalaureate granting institution. Or you can come to the community college with the aspiration of entering a vocational program such as nursing, for example, or computer science that will give you a job right after the graduation. And then others come into community colleges just because they want to take one or two courses here and there in order to shore up their skills in order to get a better job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it is a large system, and it is a network of colleges that exist throughout the United States. Actually, the name community college came from the Truman Commission in 1947 that created, and actually they state that they wanted to create a network of affordable generalized colleges that are hyper-local. That is, they provide, they satisfy the needs of the local communities where they exist, and they are, in fact, the gateway into the baccalaureate granting institutions.
How many colleges are there in the country, community colleges?
There are about 1,200 community colleges in the country.
Mm-hmm. And how many of these students, roughly 12 million students who enter into the system every year, how many every year they enter, or there are 12 million students actually in the
the population is 12 million. So
okay. Roughly about 3 million enter every year, or 4 million?
About that.
Okay. How many of them are really prepared for a college-level education, at least from the education perspective?
You see, inherent in your question is the actual promise, and the actual problem.
Mm.
Community colleges accept anyone, regardless of preparation. So when you talk about being prepared for college, it could be educationally prepared, or it could be emotionally prepared, or even, if you want to say, financially prepared. But let's take just the educational preparation. If you look at the individuals who come to community colleges, at least 68%, this is according to the Community College Research Center at Columbia University, at least 68% need one or more remedial course, meaning that they have not met the entrance standards, if you will, in writing, in reading, or in mathematical computational ability. So at least 68% of those 3 million that you're just talking about need to have additional help before they can enter a college-level course. And community colleges are really experts at doing this. We provide wonderful remedial education. We remediate, that is, we bring students who come to us with very poor academic skills, and pretty much within 1 year, we're able to bring them to college-level courses because it's an intensive approach to the specific skill of writing, reading, or mathematical computation. Actually, mathematical computation is a little more difficult, but reading and writing is very effective. So when you say how many of them are prepared, well, at least 68% are not prepared.
Mm-hmm. At some level, right. Earlier you mentioned in your clear explanation there are complexities in providing education in community colleges. What are those challenges or complexities? If you could highlight or give us a little bit detailed view of it.
I can give you probably an anecdote, might be the best way to explain it. When I was interim president of Bronx Community College in New York City, it is in the Bronx. It is in a beautiful, beautiful campus atop a hill. And surrounding that hill, there are very active gangs. And if you take a student that is in one of those, a person that is one of those gangs, who decides that they're going to do something with themselves, and they take a walk up that hill, and that takes courage to say to their gang members, if you will, I'm not going to be part of the gang anymore. I'm going to go up there and get an education. When they go up to the hill, they come in and they are basically saying to themselves, I really don't belong here. I belong with my gang members, but I want to make something out of my life. So the first thing that they meet when they get to Bronx Community College is a 5-hour placement exam where they test for remedial, for reading skills, writing skills, and mathematical computation. Most likely, that individual is told later that they didn't meet the standards, and therefore they're going to have to take 1 or 2 or 3 remedial courses. That is, they're not able to get into the college level courses. They can come to the college, but they're going to have to take some remediation. In addition to that, there is a bill that is presented to them that is $3,000 a year. It's about $1,500 a semester. And for this individual who probably is making $11,000 a year or less, $1,500 is a pretty big tab. Now, sure, they can get financial aid, but that takes time. That takes the initiative of applying for financial aid. That takes someone that can take them. Sometimes it requires a IRS form. So, all of these are barriers that are presented to that student. And what we need to do as community colleges, we need to eliminate all of those barriers. We need to make certain that they are welcomed. They can, what I call in the book, the medical approach, medical model, like when you go into a hospital, you have a team of people that surround you and help you and then treat you. So that's, in a sense, I'm trying to use that as an anecdote because it is important. I have another anecdote. When I was teaching at Borough of Manhattan Community College, I thought I was a pretty good teacher. And there was one student that was very attentive, but suddenly stopped coming. So finally, when he came back, I said to him, come to see me in my office. How come you didn't come to class? You're going to flunk this class if you don't come to class. And he said, well, gee, now you have to remember, this is 1968. I was afraid to come to class. I said, why are you afraid to come to class? I said, well, I live in Harlem, and I always come to Manhattan with my buddy, because if something happens, he can help me. And my buddy was sick, so I was afraid to come to Manhattan by myself. Now, this is an emotional baggage that student has. You can't. People don't realize that some of these students take a great deal. It takes a great deal of courage on their part to go and take and get and partake of the educational opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you had a fair bit of success with the accelerated program at the Queensborough Community College. What were the foundations of that program, and why it succeeded, and what led it to the success? Well,
the program creates cohorts of the individuals who come and enter the college. Each cohort has a dedicated advisor. The advisor, in turn, has a dedicated faculty liaison. The advisor, the cohort advisor, is an individual that meets with the students every single week. The students are given a Metro card, which is a card that they use to be able to ride in the subways for free. And believe you me, that is the most important advisor every week, they don't get the Metro card. So there's an incentive to meet with the advisor. In addition to that, there is a program that is connected between the faculty, the academic advisor, the counseling department, and the cohort advisor. And if the student is absent, the teacher can just put the name of the students into the program. It goes to everyone. Everyone now knows that that student is not attending class. They start calling the student. They start bringing the student in. They try to find out what's wrong with the student. So it's what I call, euphemistically, I call a private style education in a public setting. We care about the success of that student. That has resulted in a 52% graduation rate.
Mm-hmm.
Just that. I mean, and then of course, you have the faculty. It's kind of you have to buy the books to see it all. But there are all kinds of activities that the faculty engages in. There's a great deal of professional development that takes place in order to get the faculty acclimated to the style of teaching. It's a different way of handling this very difficult student population.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm stepping back a little bit in time. In the early years, what were as you have in the chapter, perils of the promise? What were the difficulties? What really, we obviously want to provide access to everybody, and then what kind of challenges were there?
Well, the peril of the promise is really a short way of saying that we are promising access to higher education, but at the same time, we're not delivering achievement. We're not delivering graduation. So that's the peril of the promise. And I think I have been describing throughout our conversation a number of factors that impact our ability to have appropriate graduation rates for our students. Again, I go back to the educational deficiencies that start out with the high school and starts out with the communication between the high school and the community colleges, the emotional deficiencies that students come in with a lack of self-esteem. They can walk in and they believe that they do not belong in the college, so they're looking for the first sign of somebody saying you don't belong here, so that they can drop out. You have societal problems that they have. Some students come to us and who are homeless, students who are living in projects, students who are living in horrible situations. And by the way, this is not just the minority population. When I worked in Corning, I was the only Hispanic in the entire institution. I was the president of the college, but I was the only Hispanic. And the women who lived in the hills, the Appalachian Hills, who literally took their lives in their hands to come down to the college, because when they came back, the boyfriend would come in drunk and say to them, you're trying to be better than me, and beat them up. So it's just not relegated to minority members. White, poor people also fall into this category. So the perils of the promise is that can unfettered access be equated with high graduation rates? And the answer is no, unless you provide extraordinary academic and student support services to the students.
You mentioned that one of the ways to repair the broken promise is to create a culture, and you were explaining that a little bit earlier on, and then there has to be a lot of interventions or monitoring along the way as you want to transform this institutionalized way of preparing the young students who could become employable and be fulfilling citizens. Can you explain what is needed? I mean, it's one thing to create at one institution, but what are the challenges in making that as a standard common practice across all community colleges in creating a culture?
that is a major concern, and that is it really has to start out with the board of trustees and the president of the college. They have to commit themselves to ensuring that the entire college adopts a culture of care. The amount of professional development that needs to be applied is tremendous. You have to start out with secretaries who have customer relations with the students rather than treating the students as people who don't belong there, to faculty who is trained to be, as faculty members, we're trained to be selective. We're trained to weed out those people who do not do well and to just reward those people who do well. And even though we care a lot about the people who are struggling, the fact of the matter is that we're always judging the students. Well, in this new way of looking at it, the faculty member becomes part of a team of individuals who is looking not just at the academic abilities of the students, but also the other deficiencies that the student has. That takes a lot of professional development. So it's really, it cannot just be said, well, we're going to just do this. The college needs to really engage in a cultural change in order to do this. And I must say that a great deal of colleges in this nation are doing this already. They are beginning, they may do it as pilot projects. Sometimes they do it in one area, but not on others. There are very few that do it holistically, as we did at Queensborough and the City University of New York. But a lot of people are beginning to realize that, in fact, community colleges are different than four-year colleges.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, of course, there's always money involved in it, and there's funding issues. How do we overcome that?
Well, this is very interesting. I think it's in page 149 of the book. I give a rendition of how you can pay for this. But let me just simplify it by saying, again, at Queensborough, what I did is I had a $3 million reserve. I took $1 million of that reserve, and I hired 10 counselors. That was $450,000, and then I used the rest of the money for professional development activities. I increased the graduation rate the retention rate, not the graduation, the retention rate from fall to spring by 5%. That gave me sufficient money to cover and give me more than the $1 million. Why? Because community colleges are generally funded by the numbers of students that they have. So in our system, the formula was 1/3 tuition, 1/3 state, 1/3 city. So the more students you have, the more money you get. And the fact of the matter is that if you increase your retention and your graduation rate, you more than pay for the amount that for the money that it costs you to institute all of these programs. It's the only concern that in terms of finances that needs to be addressed is that if politicians begin to see that the local community college is becoming expensive because they are retaining more students, they could then turn around and say, well, we don't going to give them that much money, which causes a problem. So the president and the board of trustees need to, from the very beginning of this process, engage the local politicians in order for them to understand how beneficial this is. Because the more people graduate, the more jobs they get, the more taxes they pay, and everybody wins.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, stepping back a little bit, Germany has a different way of preparing people through their vocational training program, and they've been very well known and successful in the world of education. Are there any lessons to be learned from their system that we can apply in this country?
Well, yes, we can. Yes, we do. And in many ways, community colleges have emulated the apprenticeship system in Germany. However, In Germany, what happens, as you perhaps know, you have the different tracks, if you will. You have the university track, and then you have the vocational track. And,
Correct.
And if you're placed in the vocational track, you go into an apprenticeship program, and you do very well with it because it's almost like an extension of the old guild process. Community colleges really have taken a different approach, but there are some similarities. For example, there are some examples. LaGuardia Community College in New York City with IBM has an association with the company where there is a track, if you will, for students to be able to walk to after they finish their degree to work for IBM. Macomb Community College in Illinois is famous for its ability to work with industry, and therefore present programs that are leading to an employment immediately. Community colleges are very nimble, and they're very, because they're very local, they're very close to the local community, local business community. When I was president of Corning Community College in upstate New York, one of the things that I will take to my grave with honor is the fact that we saved 1,000 jobs for that town because we were able to, in less than 18 months, prepare a program that enabled their glass blowers to become fiber optic technicians very quickly because the company was changing into fiber optics. So we were able to respond very quickly to the needs of the local community. I think most community colleges do that. And in that sense, we learned from the Germans. We learned that apprenticeship and the close association, we here in our system call the 2+2, that is 2 years of community colleges and then 2 years of internship in a business. And by the way, some of these programs start at high school, 2 years of high school, 2 years of colleges, and there's an apprenticeship all throughout those 4 years. So by the time the student gets the associate's degree, the person is prepared for a job. That's really has elements of the German model.
You have a long and very illustrious career in the education. Can you explain a little bit about your career? How did you get into education, especially in the community college education?
Yeah. Do you have 2 hours?
Yes.
No. I was trained as a researcher. My PhD is in biochemistry, and I never intended to teach, or more or less, to teach in a community college. But I needed a job. I had 2 daughters, and I needed to make some money when I got my master's degree. And at that time, I could get a job as a community college faculty member with a master's degree. So I did. And once I got into the system, I really fell in love with the mission of community colleges, the mission of access. This was 1966, where the civil rights movement was at its height, where the Higher Education Act of 1965 was signed, and financial aid became available to enable members of minorities to go to college. So the whole idea, the idealism, if you will, of egalitarian education, grabbed me, and I became enamored of this particular system. Then, as I went on, I got my PhD, and I decided to stay in the community college system. At the age of 31, I realized that I was going to be teaching Bio 100 for the rest of my life, and that really didn't appeal to me. So I decided to go into administration, primarily because I didn't like what administration was doing, and I decided to join them rather than to fight them. So, and to change the system from inside. And from then on, the rest is history. I became a dean. I became an acting president of Middlesex Community College and the president of Tunxis Community College in Connecticut. Then I went to Ithaca, where I was president of Tompkins Cortland Community College for 8 years. And then I went to Corning, where I was president for 6 years. And then I went to Queensborough in the University of New York, where I was president for 10 years. And then I became vice chancellor for community colleges for the city of New York, for the City University of New York. And then I retired, and I flunked retirement. So they called me back. I became president of Bronx Community College as an interim for 1 year. And then I decided that, after that long career in community college, since I had had the privilege of seeing the movement grow and mature to this point, and since I am at the latter years of my life, I decided to write this book and to put at least my ideas into paper so that I could inform my friends, inform the public, if I can, inform policymakers, and most of all, inform the new administrators who are coming into the system to at least have the benefit of the words of an old guy who has been working at this for a long time.
You have very well explained in the book what administrative changes and the mindset changes we have to do. But is there something as a message, if I'm a student or prospective student, or I'm a community college student, is there a message for me there that you would like to give it out? That what is that they can do to achieve the goals? Because not everybody enters there with the goal of getting an associate degree or moving on to a 4-year bachelor's degree. But is there something that, based on your experience that you've seen, that the students can do better to be prepared better for higher education, or more important, higher learning?
I think they can. I think that, you have to factor in the maturity level of the students, but community college students are generally older, so they can do it. I say the most important thing that a student can do is at the very first contact they have with a community college, the first time that they meet with an academic advisor or an advisor of any kind, is to determine what their goals are, to be very clear as to where they want to go, and then to create an academic plan. I used to call it the MAP, my academic plan, an academic plan that will guide you through the process, because the most common mistake that students make is that they are not aware of the pathway that they have to take in order to meet their goals, and they waste time, they waste credits, they waste money. Just to give you an example, the remedial courses that I just mentioned before, if a student has the remedial needs, and they use their financial aid for remedial needs, in New York State, you had 10 semesters of financial aid. Well, if you spend 3 semesters getting your remedials out of the way, and then you spend two semesters in, to finish your associate's degree, you are now in a situation that you may not be able to finish your bachelor's degree with the financial aid, because you have wasted your financial aid on the remedial courses. So if there's any way that you can reduce that burden, that's the way to do it. But the way to do it, I say, to answer your question directly, what can a student do when they walk into the community college? They can say, this is what I want to do. Or they can say, I don't know what I want to do. Help me decide where I want to go. But they have to be it's almost like, I use the medical model again. You have to be assertive as a patient. You have to be assertive as a student. So I think that's very important. The other thing that students can do is, once they become successful as students, they should join the student government. They should be able to ensure that the administration of the college understands their needs, so that they can, in fact, make the administration of the college respond to their needs. Because, sometimes we need to be nudged a little bit. So I think that's what the students could do. It's not the old-fashioned way of thinking of saying, if you want to go to college, you have to, do your, make certain you get your SATs. You have to make certain you have to take your academic courses in high school. You prepare yourself for college. Of course, you need to do that. But for community colleges, it's a safety net. We are the safety schools. There's no shame in that. If you can't make it to the 4-year institution, be proud. Go to the community college, prepare yourself, remediate whatever you need to remediate, and then go on to the four-year college and get your bachelor's degree. My professor in graduate school, Dr. Henry Hirschfeld, who may he rest in peace, was from California. He went to a community college, and then he went to the University of California, Berkeley, and then he became a PhD, and then he went to New York University, where he was a long-standing professor, and that's where I met him, and I was blessed to have his guidance. That's an example of how a community college does it. There are many examples of individuals. As a matter of fact, if you go into the community college, American Association of Community Colleges website, they have all the distinguished alums of community colleges, including Kirkpatrick, Glenn, the astronaut. They have a whole list of individuals who started their careers at a community college.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's no shame in going to a community college, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely not. It's all about your efforts and your goals, and where you start from, that's not important. It's where you end that's more important. You may end up in the space.
That's right.
Right. Are you working on any other projects or any other books that we may have a luxury of reading further?
Well, I'm very interested in college governance because it's almost an extension of this book. Boards of trustees have to be aware of what the needs are in community colleges, and most people who serve on boards of trustees are individuals who either have gone to a university-type institution or are not well versed in community colleges, and they approach the governance of a community college in a more business-like way. And the relationship between boards and presidents is sometimes strained because presidents and boards are not on the same page, or sometimes the president overwhelms the board and becomes sort of like a person who is just using the board as an advisory capacity rather than a jurisdictional capacity. So I'm very much interested in that whole thing about the relationship between boards and presidents, and the relationship and the responsibilities that boards have for community colleges. So if I live long enough, you might see something like that in the future, something about community college governance.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to live very long, and many thousands of students would benefit from your insights and valuable contribution that you're making to the colleges.
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with Dr. Eduardo Martí, the author of The America's Broken Promise, the Bridging the Community College Achievement Gap. Thank you very much for your time and your comments.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.